All right, so ready to have some fun tonight. My name is Adam Torres, and I'm the host of the Mission Matters podcast, a top 2.5% rated podcast. Myself and Sharad, we've been working and building this company last decade, over 6,000 interviews in, and we get the privilege of hosting events like this and bringing together people and community. That's a big part of Mission Matters, and I'm particularly interested and excited about today's panel because I haven't really talked that much about investment and finance in a while. And just for quick context, especially for some that are at home, that my viewers at home, you already know a bit of this, but for the new friends we have here today, I was in finance almost 14 years, and I spent a lot of time talking about investments, talking about like products like that Goldman Sachs offered, Charles Schwab offered, a lot of the big brands when I was managing money for many, many years. And I've been in media now full-time for the last 10 years or so, as I mentioned, but it's interesting and fun and exciting to have these pros up here from entertainment and film finance to kind of pick their brain for everybody in the room, of course, but for myself as well, and of course for the audience at home. And speaking of the audience at home, if you're not in the audience, it's probably because you haven't subscribed to our newsletter or our event calendar, which to do that, just head to missionmatters.com and subscribe to that calendar so you can stay up to date and you can get your butt in one of these seats next time as well. All right, so that's my commercial. Thank you, gotta get that one in. Let's get into the program. So first off, some bios. Let's start it off. Jeff Bowler. Jeff. Hello. This is a fun one. All right, Emmy award-winning film and television producer. He's done a whole lot as a financier with a diverse career in the entertainment industry. He began as director of business development for Bandai, then served as vice president of business development at WWE, where he helped launch WWE Films and co-produced the Mummy franchise and The Scorpion King. From 2012 to 2017, Jeff was head of acquisitions and production for The Exchange, contributing to over 100 films, including Dear White People, Two Guns. He created the hit TV series Inked, and in 2005, and has produced over 250 million in films and more than 300 hours of television content as co-owner of Wonder Film Media, which, hey, it's wonderful films too, but Wonder Film Media. So again, for Jeff.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, Michael. So Michael is founder and CEO of Imprint Entertainment, LLC. Michael has 25 years of experience working in the entertainment industry. He began his career as a talent agent representing writers, directors, cinematographers, and producers. Throughout his tenure as an agent, Michael orchestrated numerous high-profile deals for his clients, including working on iconic projects such as Sex and the City, iRobot, The Notebook, Nip Tuck, Panic Room, and The West Wing, among many others. In 2008, Michael founded the production company Imprint Entertainment and has overseen more than $1.8 billion in worldwide box office success. So a whole lot of box office success. Notable credits under Imprint Entertainment's banner include the Twilight Saga franchise, as well as films such as Stepfather featuring Penn Badgley and Amber Heard, Pawn starring Forrest Whitaker, Ray Liotta, Common, and Michael Chiklis, and The Vault starring James Franco, Taryn Manning, and Worth starring Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci. Give it up for Michael. I told you we were going to have some fun tonight. I was like, oh, this is a good panel. So just kind of opening it up to both of you. Entertainment, was this always something you wanted to get into? Is this a business that you were thinking like, that's what I want to do?
You go first?
Go for it.
For me, yeah, entertainment started for me when I was young. I was always the narrator in the school plays, but I also would go to my dad's office and watch him do business and be a businessman. And so at 16 or 17, my dream was to come out here and get into the entertainment business. I like being creative, but I also like the deal making. I really enjoy, the art of the deal and then seeing it come through. And then getting to see it on the big screen, or today now on the little screen with 90% of all the movies going to streamers.
Yeah.
which is great. It's a dynamic and ever-changing industry, and streamers took place of the DVD business.
Yeah.
Really. So.
Michael.
I moved out here in the late 90s and got kind of a late start in entertainment, and was doing real estate on the East Coast, and came out here, thought I'd do real estate, and of course you catch the entertainment bug in LA, and didn't want to be an actor, but got a job in an agency, and realized that really behind the camera and producing and financing was where I wanted to be. And so it didn't necessarily start out, but since I came out here, definitely the direction I wanted to go.
All right, now I got a tip before this started from Justin. Justin said, "Hey, we got a great storyteller up here, so we're gonna start with just tell me a story." I was like, Justin told me, Adam, this can't be a boring just finance presentation. He said, "You got a great storyteller up there," so thank you, Justin, for the shout out. Tell me a story, man.
There's a lot of good ones. The one that me and Justin were just talking about, I like to say that deals come and go. They're always there. When I say deals, movie deals for financing. So
the one that got away?
Yeah, the one that got away. So, we see 20 deals a week that are all financeable. They all make sense. Sometimes we can move fast enough, sometimes we can't. So on one project called Meet Cute with Kaylee Cuoco and Pete Davidson, it came to my desk on a Monday from my old company, The Exchange, and the whole budget was $3.5 million. On paper, we do a full analysis, and Brian, who does sales and distribution, an old friend, he knows his numbers as good as I do. And on paper, maybe that's $5 or $6 million to sail out of the world. But there was only a $3 million investment that was needed. Okay, so you can double your money. They needed it by Friday. And there's
finishing money.
There's due diligence and stuff that we do, and I just couldn't move that fast. So an hour later, they called me and said, "Okay, we went to someone else." And a week later, they sold it for $22 million. $11 million for international to Amazon, $11 million to Peacock for domestic. But again, I'm in the business of hitting singles and doubles. So when I see $5 or $6 million in sales against a $3 million budget, I get excited. We just couldn't move that fast because we didn't have our own fund. So I'd have to call the banks. The banks do closings. It's months and months and months. Or you call a private investor or a private lender within Hollywood, and they charge you 20% flat, even if it's a 90-day bridge. So, we lost that one.
Yeah.
But again, there are deals every week that come across your desk. Maybe not that good, and I don't think anybody saw that coming anyway. But yeah.
Michael, you didn't know this was coming, but man, you were an agent. You've been 25 years of stuff. Tell me a story. Tell me an entertainment story. Come on, I know you know that. You didn't know that was coming.
I didn't. I mean,
Jeff and Justin are to blame on this one. Jeff and Justin, but I know you got some
I could
stories.
go the opposite
of
Jeff on
Do
this.
it.
I was involved in a film, and some investment bankers out of New York were funding the project. And again, it comes down to me, it comes down to business. To other people, sometimes the investment bankers will get wowed, or investors, and they start putting their money into the wrong places. And they brought me on, Salt, come on board, executive produce the movie, and their thing was they're investors on Wall Street. They know what they're doing. Nobody can tell them anything. I told them they're making the movie for way too much. The talent doesn't support the film or the budget, and they said, "Don't you worry, we're going to show Hollywood how to do this." And so they did it. They went and spent $7 million and put $7 million into the movie, which you should never do. And you could make a $30 million movie for that. And they did it all in cash and ended up, losing absolutely everything, by the way. They didn't make a penny on it.
I've got a good follow-up to that one. I just thought of
Get in there. Get in there.
Justin's got me thinking now. He's got me thinking now. Then you just triggered one with your friend Jake. I always give this one story. So I tell people, before you get into the movie business, especially if you know me or you're my friends, call me or call someone in sales and distribution that knows their numbers and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this movie with this actor and this director at this price. Does it make sense?" Most of the time. But a friend of mine didn't call first. He called me after and says, "Hey, I made this $10 million movie in London. Will you look at it and potentially sell it for me?" Yeah. I said, "Of course, great. You're a great guy." He put up his own money, and I watched the movie, and it looked like a $20 million movie. So the production value was there. Shut down the streets of London, shot it over Christmas, and it was called Breaking the Bank. And
Fortuitous?
Yeah,
Fortuitous?
and it was Kelsey Grammer, who's known not as a leading man, as more of a character actor, which decreases the value of your film. It is what it is. And it was called Breaking the Bank, and I watched the movie, and we sold it for $600,000. He spent $10 million on it. And I said, Jake, you should have called me first.
Don't say that with a smile, man. That hurts.
I said, but I told him, I said, call me first. I tell everybody that. Don't spend $1 until you call me, because some people call and say, hey, look, I want to make this movie for $20 million. I said, it's worth $3 million. So if you really want to, go for it, but you're going to lose 17. And that's pretty much what I spend most of my day doing. And a lot of my friends and producers out there, there's one right there, and we do this all day for each other, And
so kind of staying along that line of thought and logic. A lot of people, investors in here that maybe you've invested in traditional investments or maybe some alternatives, but haven't really thought about movies or film. You've obviously just given both a couple of horror stories. How is investing in film different from your experience?
It's funny, because when I started 25 years ago, my first movie was called Across the Hall. It was Brittany Murphy's last movie. I didn't know what I didn't know at 24 years old, or however, 25.
Can anyone relate to that?
And I found a great script and a great young filmmaker, and became good friends with Brittany, and she thought this was going to help resurrect her career. And a friend of mine who was an NBA basketball player, same age, we partnered up, and he's like, Jeff, let's make this movie. I'll put up the $2 million, you make it, you get the stars. I said, great, we're gonna make $100 million. And that's what everybody thinks. I had no clue at all what I was doing. I knew how to make a good movie. I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to market it. I didn't know the value of it. We sold it for $1 million, and my friend lost $1 million. And from that day on, I promised myself to learn the business as good or better than anybody, and never ever lose another dollar of my money or any of my friends or any investors' money. And that's what we've done now, almost 200 movies later.
So Michael, we hear a lot about the box office, right? Like that's what gets the headlines. That's what opening weekend, opening box office receipts, how many people went to see it, So I always think about the investors on the back end of that. If something doesn't do good at the box office, is that kind of like a tale to where the investors are kind of sunk, or is there other narratives?
There is another narrative on it, and it depends where you sit in the waterfall of the film. So we say if you want your money to be secure and you want the best outcome, and what Jeff and I are doing is put your money into the senior position, to the debt position, or to a gap, or to a position that's first out in the waterfall. So when you sell the film, it doesn't matter if you'll see a film that comes out and it does it was made for $10 million or $12 million. It does $3 million at the box office. That doesn't mean at all that the senior investors lost any money. As a matter of fact, they probably maybe it doesn't matter if any of the investors will have lost money, but. It depends where you are in the waterfall. You get your money back. You're making a percentage on it, and it may have already made all of its money back internationally by the time it even comes out here. And so when we come in, we look at it and we'll analyze it and work with the sales companies to make sure that when we put money in, that the sales are above what the investors are putting in.
And just to follow up on that, what Michael is saying is, we're a B2B company. We're not, the consumer business doesn't drive the narrative for our bottom line or our investors' bottom line. We license the movies as a commodity, think about that, to the UK, Brazil, Spain, Latin America, Germany, on and on and on, for a flat fee. So we get out, then whoever bought the rights to that territory has the right to distribute, market, exploit, make a home video of it. Whatever they want to do, they've paid us, we're out, we've recouped. Now it's up to them in their territory to drive business for themselves. But we recoup based on all the territory sales around the world, and then the US domestic sale of rights. And those rights range from 10 years, we license them, to 25 years, and then they come back and our investors get another bite at the apple. We recycle the rights again worldwide, and that's the part of building a library as well. But it also reduces a lot of risk because we're not beholden to the consumer going and spending $20 at the box office.
We're using some terminology here that maybe some of the people in the audience may be familiar with because they've invested in things like this, and maybe some of them at home watching this on YouTube or the podcast, but we're saying things like bridge loans, gap, get a little bit into the technical side of that just to give some context to some of this vocabulary we're using up here.
Okay, I'll start. So some of the, we've never hit home runs. It's singles and doubles for us. And a few of the different types of loans that we like to do that are very secure, bridge loans. And I was telling a few people out here before this started that, we pay 20% flat kind of as an industry, even if we're borrowing money for 90 days. And, I don't know, I've borrowed, between both of us, we borrowed at least $500 million in the last 20 years and paid, very high interest rates. And we both know our numbers in business as good as anybody in the business. So now we want to become the bank and be the third-party lender charging everybody 20. So us and our investors can make the arbitrage based off of our discipline and our knowledge. So we'll do bridge loans, which might be, for an example, I made a movie with Morgan Freeman 3 or 4 years ago. I did a personal bridge loan for $400,000. The budget was $7 million, and it was Morgan Freeman, Cole Hauser, and someone else. And the net budget after the budget was $10 million. The net budget after the tax credit was like $7 million. I did a $400,000 bridge loan to Morgan Freeman to hold him. He signs his contract. Then the sales company can now have the right to go sell that film with his likeness worldwide. Now, say they go do $5 million in pre-sales internationally. We've now just reduced that $7 million exposure down to $2 million. So then you pre-sell the domestic rights for $3 million. That wouldn't be today. That was 3 years ago. That's now cut in half, probably $1.5 million. But now you've laid off your whole budget. So that was a bridge loan. I put a $400,000. I took a lien on the whole movie. So if someone didn't pay me back in the 90 days, I would have taken over the movie, made it, financed it, bonded it, and I would have owned a Morgan Freeman movie for $400,000. Yeah. And I would have made a couple $1 million. They paid me back. We made the movie. I made 20%. Everybody else was happy. So bridge loan is one. Sometimes we'll do, a cash deposit if it's the right film and it makes more sense. But then there's a thing called gap lending, and it's not gap lending in the traditional accounting world. It's, we have a sales sheet that has every country, and then what we hope to license it for, and what our minimum license fee is in order to make the movie and the financials work. So maybe you sell 20% of those, pre-sell 20% of those territories. And maybe some of the bigger ones, the UK and Germany, maybe you hold those back. And then a lender like myself would come in and say, okay, Germany's worth $1 million on the low end. I'll lend you $600,000, but I'm now taking a lien on Germany. And that's called gap lending in the film business. So we do a lot of that, and it's a good secure way, because now we're actually holding the distribution rights to the UK, to Germany, for a very discounted amount.
We'll also do senior lending. So in your traditional debt lending, so if I have a film going right now, we did $12 million. It's worth $12 million internationally. The sales company took it out, and we've so far sold $2 million of the 12 projected.
On purpose.
On purpose. So we will pre-sell it to get in some money and use that as part of the whole finance plan for the film. And on the $2 million, it's paper from Germany or Russia or whoever. I mean, Russia. Right. I mean, we believe it or not, we still sell all the territories, and they give us a contract. They give you a deposit, and then we go off to normally a lender, and the lender charges us anywhere from 12 to 18, 20% just to bank the contract. And so we'll get those $2 million banked on the paper. And then when we deliver the film, the territory pays the lender back. And that's really easy debt lending, and every film does it, every independent film for sure. And
it's like cash flowing a purchase order in retail.
That's it. And then if it was $12 million in pre-sales, and so take that down. So now there's $10 million left that we sell internationally when the movie's done or throughout us making the movie. We could take a gap loan against a percentage of that $10 million that we know we're going to sell. So if we took another $3 million from somebody as a gap loan, that's a really easy loan for somebody to do, because they know we're going to sell that portion. We still have $10 million left, and then they'll charge us a ton of money for that. So that's why we're becoming more of the lender side now, because that's really that's really where the business is.
To add on to that, now that we're becoming lenders, we're not just making our own movies. We're supporting other filmmakers, building better relationships, building more opportunities for more people. That creates more jobs, and it diversifies. We've done well making our own movies, but We have friends here in the audience that have better movies than ours that if we had a few extra dollars, we could get in on. It also supports them and their families and jobs, and also gets us, down the road building a library with a diverse group of filmmakers.
So Jeff, I think you answered this when you talked about the Morgan Freeman movie, but I want to kind of make this connection between film and maybe some of the traditional investments that people have done in the past. And one of the closest ones I could think of would be like real estate. So when you think about real estate, there's always collateral behind it, right? You have the physical product and you have the property, you have the land, you have something when you think about investing in real estate. So can you kind of help make that connection of how that works? And maybe even if, has anybody ever defaulted? I don't know.
Oh, plenty of people do. Yeah, so you're right. I kind of covered that with the Morgan Freeman analogy. But yeah, so when we come in any position, the collateral that we take is either the entire film's rights, which have a value, and that value is not just made up in ether from us. We have, bankable, bonded sales and distribution companies. That's all they do. They give us guidance. So every film project has a comp, just like real estate. You build a house for $5 million on a street that all the houses are $2 million. You overbuilt. You don't want to be in that position, right? You don't want to be in that one. So you want to build for $1.6 million, right? So that's the analogy that we use. It's kind of like a commodity. Every film, we've made a lot of movies with Nick Cage when, you can make these $10 million action films, and get a tax credit for $2 million, make them for $9 million, make $1 million bucks. 3 or 4 people, we split $1 million bucks. It's a nice little day at the office, but that's the discipline. They may not be the sexiest movies, but we're not losing money and we're not getting rich, but everybody's doing okay and we're having fun doing it. But yeah, so when I go back to the gap lending, we take a lien on the territories. That's the collateral. So it's not, when you put up equity in any business, it's speculative, it's risk, right? You're buying points hoping that you're going to hit a home run. We actually never ever do equity. We did, our first movie, we lost. That was 25 years ago, we've learned. But now it's just debt. We take collateral on every single movie. And it could be a combination of rights, it could be a singular territory, that we heavily discount also. We never put in more than 70% of the lowest estimates of the entire worldwide sales. So then you have a good 30% coverage, and then there's other coverages. Maybe there's equity that sits, behind us. So, but yeah, that's how it works.
Michael, how do you, you mentioned like the valuation of this in movies, and obviously you get a lot of things that come across your desk. I've looked at a lot of films. Like, how do you come up with the valuation and make that ultimate decision of like what you're gonna back?
We work with all the top sales companies and all the top, well, first of all, we've been doing it for a long time, so we have a really good idea anyway. If the film comes in, we know right off the bat, we could tell you if it's overpriced, if we think we're going to be able to get the money back internationally, because that's sort of where we're looking. We may add in a domestic deal if we can do like a pre-sale or something. But for the most part, we've been doing it for a long time, so we know. But we do work with all the top sales companies, and then we turn around and we take a look at their estimates. And a lot of these sales companies have been doing it for a long time, and they're bankable sales companies. So we know going in, we analyze it, and to us, we may love a project. I had a project in with Channing Tatum recently, and I loved the project. Thought it was great. He's a producer. He was an actor on it, and we ended up making an offer, not what they wanted, and they ended up making the movie. But it just on I loved it, wanted to do it, but it's a business for us too, and so we ultimately had to pull out of it, and we didn't do it, but it just didn't add up number-wise. Now that movie still may come out and do big numbers, but it's risky, and we're kind of risk adverse, and so unfortunately we didn't get in on it. Hopefully it won't turn out like
he's right. We pass and miss a lot of deals because the numbers just don't make sense, and maybe they're very close, or we think it's going to be okay, but if we're thinking splitting hairs, we're out.
Can you give an example of maybe a film that was, a fail, it was a bust, and investors lost money, and maybe if they would have been working with you, or if you would have been involved in this, like it may have been a different outcome?
Yeah, I'm sure there's tons, God. I mean, there's a list of them, not our movies, because we actually do them right. But we've advised. Actually, here's a good one. I don't know the exact numbers.
Throw them out there.
Here's a good one. So I'm a producer on the movie Lamborghini, and there's someone else out here from the company there. that runs that company. But they made the financiers are a very well-known a multi-billion-dollar alcohol family, and from Europe, and they wanted to make Lamborghini for different reasons, governmental, political, things like that, access to whoever, the Pope. And so I advised against spending 20-something million on it, because on paper, to me, it was a marginal script with an okay director. I'm just being honest, not to defend anybody who knows the project or who's friends with Bobby or anybody, but on paper to me, I'm like, I wouldn't put money into it at all, which we didn't, but I helped put it together, I put the cast together, and helped with some of the sales, and I don't know, my guess is they lost 20 million of the $25 million. It doesn't make any sense to me, but they had other motives for doing that and making that investment, and it's not a movie I would make or advise anybody to make, but they did. And I'm sure there's 50 more behind that, 500 more behind that, I don't know.
All right, so this is my last question I'll be asking, and I'm giving you a heads up here because I want to open this up for everybody else to ask some questions. So if everybody, now's your time to start thinking. I can keep asking them, but I want to get the crowd involved. This is definitely a fireside chat moment, and if you're at home watching this on YouTube, throw in some comments, and who knows, maybe they'll answer them. I don't know, we'll see, but throw in some comments in the comment section and throw in those questions as well. So my final question, you mentioned hitting base hits, maybe hitting some doubles. Do you expect to hit any home runs?
Yeah, but look, we don't go in thinking that we're going to make a home run out of this. I think you go in with hoping for the best, but I know when we go in, we know that we're not going to lose, and we know that we're going to at least make back the money plus the interest. And if we can grab a couple points in the film, that's great. But look, my friends put money in the long legs, and they didn't know that was going to be such a success that it was. They put in not even that much, I think under $1 million, and it was a home run for them. It was a grand slam for them, actually.
Yeah,
and they were in this position. They were in a senior position. They think they grabbed a couple points in the back end, also from doing the deal because the movie really needed some money, and they're gonna make well into the seven figures on that because the movie became so successful. We don't go in thinking that. I think in the back of your mind you hope, but.
Michael's got a good point. That's another type of loan that we'll do. A lot of films will run out of money in post-production, but you can see it. I can at least screen what they've shot and say, okay, we have something here. Yep. And then, unfortunately, the position that they're in is they need money. So like on Long Legs, they needed roughly $1 million. Well, someone already spent 10 million in front of you, so it's safe to say you're gonna get your million back if you're in first position. Mm-hmm. And like you said, if you can get a few of the back-end profit points, even better. So we will definitely do those, what they call finishing fund deals, because we can see that. I can bring in my sales team, we can evaluate it, and it's usually extremely safe because we're gonna take a lien on as much as we can of the movie. If we can take a lien on the whole thing, we will, but we'll definitely be in the waterfall in the first position to be made first before anybody else, and we get out, and hopefully everybody else gets out, but we're concerned with our investors that we put in. Yeah.
All right, let's open it up for some questions. There we go. First.
I'm an award-winning film, documentary director and writer. And how do we reach you guys? You're more.
You can call my agent. He's right here.
You're more rarefied
Yeah.
than most other people that you need to make it.
Sure. I love documentaries, by the way.
Thank you.
I love them. I started in documentaries 20-something years ago.
Give you mine.
I'd love to check it out.
Great.
Just come see me after. I'll give you my info.
All right.
Absolutely.
Short and sweet. Who else?
You guys have both been in the game for a long time, and you guys know your shit, that's for sure. But we know the industry has been in like a really big major disruption for quite a while. Studios, streaming companies, AI in the front, and the financing game is changing. We are looking at fast channels coming on the rise as a big equation to the new market. How do you guys look at where the heyday of where you are? Because I know both your careers, you guys have done such an amazing job, and what you might be looking back at the Produced By conference. Some of these things survived until 2025.
Yeah.
Writer strikes, everybody was struggling just to get through this. is anything going to change for you guys in your thought process and your business model to address what's the onset, what everybody's been struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, things are definitely changing and evolving by the minute. I mean, I tell people this analogy all the time. A couple of years ago, I could sell a Mel Gibson movie where he's in it for a week for $3 million at Lionsgate. That's now maybe $1.5 million. How do you make that movie, right? And, we're trying to figure that out. You have to bring the budgets down. Talent has to reduce. Technology. We haven't done a lot of deals with the Tubies of the world and stuff yet, but I think we will. It's just they're not, the movies that we're making, they're not really able to pay the license fees we need. The good thing is we're playing a little bit, above, I don't want to say the riffraff, but it's really hard when you're making a $3 or $4 million movie and you're, like I saw a few weeks ago, an Aaron Eckhart movie sold for $400,000 for domestic rights. And I'm like, 3 years ago, we were looking at $8 million out of the world. And you have to adjust, and I think we're all doing it on the fly a bit. Fast channels are definitely interesting, but none of them have money to spend on license fees. So it's like, do you do a straight distribution deal and a revenue share maybe? But again, if we're lending money, I can't take a chance on, then we go into the consumer business.
Do you associate brands? Are you guys considering that?
Yeah, so here's one thing we didn't talk about, I'll bring up briefly. Yes, definitely brands. Like we're partners with an Australian creative agency that is going to be financing a digital show for us. It's our first digital show we've ever done. I got $40,000 an episode. It's ridiculously cheap, but they're going to be fully financed. It's Coca-Cola, but it's a whole new thing for us, right? But we're also our new fund that we're putting together has an exclusive first look deal with a company called Platinum Dunes, who's Michael Bay's production company, makes A Quiet Place, The Purge, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Jack Ryan. So we're going to be, and we're very close, we're both on the board of the company as well. So they've never allowed independent financing to come into their studio deals. So we now have that ability to come and start co-financing with, right now there's a first look deal with Universal and an output deal with Universal for theatrical. And then a second look deal with Sony. And a lot of the company's films were with Paramount. And I think aligning, and the more and more you read in the indie world, you need to be making better films at not a crazy price. Like Platinum Dunes still is 30 million and under. Really 20 is the sweet spot. And like the new Purge that we're starting in the summer, it's maybe going to be a $10 million budget. That's it. But it's going to be released on 4,000 screens with a $50 million P&A budget with Universal. I think there's a market for independent producers like us, and there's a lot of you guys out there that I know, to partner with studio distribution. It's going to be a lot less films. It's going to be condensing and collapsing, but it's going to be higher quality, and you're going to get to see more theatrical films, I think, in 2025 and 2026 than we've seen in the last few years. But I think independent producers partnering with studios to make better movies, but less movies.
Yep.
At least for us, that's our business model. I think that's the way it's going.
And I'll just follow up on that too. I think we're going to see, or we're starting to see, on the higher end, because the distribution market is just shrinking in the U.S.
Big time.
And so you're not finding a lot of people that you would normally go to for an advance to help finance your film. They're like, go ahead and make it first, and then come back and see us. They're not going to put it up in advance anymore. So you're seeing more of a of a filmmaker-driven market where more quality pictures, better filmmakers, and really the market of just going out there and putting an actor in for a day and working them for 14 hours and wrapping the whole movie around it, and it's terrible, and taking it out. Those days are just they're over.
They are.
And then, or you've got the lower budget films that you're going with, like maybe a Tubi or something, and you're selling those, you're making those, you're doing those for $500,000 and just flipping them. That's not really our market at all. But the mid level is just sort of gone on these, $2-3 million films. It's difficult.
To follow up, also a documentary filmmaker, just how would you add or change anything in terms of what you've been talking about? Thank you for sharing all this information. But how does sale distribution of docs or doc series change?
That's a really good question. I've made a bunch of docs. I didn't talk about them, but I made a bunch of docs. I won my first Emmy for Best Documentary in 2017. And our sales company, we've sold Little Biggest Farm. We just did a few years ago. What was the Sesame Street one? And we sold it for a record at HBO. I already forgot the title. But I'll tell you, docs, it's hard to make money at docs, I'm sure, as you know. I've made a bunch, and I've maybe made money on 2. And I got a nice statue on my desk. That was the only one we wanted. We made $100,000 on it. But it was a passion, it was a labor of love. Docs are having a resurgence right now. Like, I'm partnered with Mark Wahlberg and his company on a doc, Mike is too. And, we're looking at making, I think you should be making these high-end docs for no more than $2 million. And that's the market, that's what I'm seeing every day with the distributors, the studios, financiers, $2 million-ish. And, but like, I don't know, we've got one that's gonna sell for like $4 million. We made it for 2, just a 90-minute doc on a person. I think docs, quality docs, like you gotta stay out of the $200,000 docs. I did one of those for my old high school a few years ago. It was a Catholic school, one of the oldest in the country that was getting shut down. They asked me to do a doc. We spent $300,000 on it. We sold it for $50,000. The school paid for it. It was a good advertising campaign for them, and it worked for their purposes. But you gotta stay out of that $200,000 to $500,000 docs, because you're just gonna, for the most part, you're just gonna get a straight distribution deal and a rev share, not a license fee. I think you should be in the $750,000 to $1 million if you actually want to be able to sell it for network quality control. At that level, I think at $2 million you can make something really nice and really special that could break out into that $4, $5, $6, $7 million sale. I'd say 10 years ago or so, those numbers were far and in between. There are a lot more of those deals out there now.
What are you seeing on doc series?
Like limited, like ongoing, or limited,
like
6, 8 episodes?
Yeah, even
Or ongoing?
4, like High on the Hog.
Yeah, I can tell you what what I'm seeing their sales and budgets are going for, like 500 to 700 an episode, 500 to 700,000 an episode. That's kind of like the license fees I'm seeing for hour-long episodes, 45 to an hour. It's, you got to have to get a network order for a docu-series, it's got to be really special these days. It used to be a lot easier to sell them, but if you come in and you're co-financing with a network or a fast channel or someone, there's a lot of room for that. Everybody would love a co-finance partner, right? Nobody wants to take all the risk, especially on the distribution side.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
This is very interesting, thank you. Can you elaborate on what the project looks like when it comes to you? It sounds like it's kind of a
Good question.
scope, and they've got a script and people attached to it. And then I'm curious, like, how does it get to that point? Can you talk about the evolution? Because they're not as familiar with the numbers that you are. Like, you're rattling off, like, why can sell this for 700? How does it even get to that stage? And how much disconnect is there in the market where they put together a budget for 17 and you're like, oh, this is only going to sell for 5? I
feel like we planted you. This is unbelievable. I mean, these are some of the best questions. Yeah, so I'll start from the back end. So weekly, we both get this. It's like, yeah, we did a budget, it's $22 million. I'm like, and what is that based on? And they're like, oh, it's just, that's what we think it costs. I'm like, okay, well, we'll start there. Your film's worth $4 million. So now let's reverse engineer it. And if you can't, pass. But yeah, when we both started 20-something years ago, we would look at, it was the slow boat. So we would get a script or maybe an idea, then we would go spend $20,000 and hire a writer to write the script for that idea. And it was a passion project. Like my first movie with Britney Spears I did a documentary on Brittany Murphy. And it took us a year to write the script. And then I got it made, but we've done that 10 other times and got a 2-page outline in a year and never got anything made. And it's, we call that development,
I think it's also I think it's also educating, and kind of who you're working with. If you're working, there's a certain people that have been around that give you scripts and projects, and they sort of they know their numbers, or they know who makes sense. But all day, I mean every day we get projects in, and it's what Jeff said. It's kind of educating then the individual bringing you the project and letting them know. They may have, like he mentioned, Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer's a great, if you get him for a series, you're a home run. You put it, for a film, it's difficult on sales, but they may see a great television actor and have a couple people say, we want to make this for $15 million, and you just kind of have to educate them, and if you really love it, you can work with them and see if you can lower it, and if not, for the most part, you're gonna have to pass and move on. on.
But to answer the bulk of your question, so yeah, we used to just work on just scripts. Now we look at just fully packaged things that are ready to go that we can move, because now it's a business. It's a cog in the wheel, and we have to move business. I think in 2021 to 2023, even during COVID, between the two of us, we made almost 30 movies. So now if it's just a script, I tell people don't send it. Unless it's from an A-list writer, it's coming from our agent or one of the other big agencies, don't send it to us, because we're not going to get to it. But tell me, who's the director? Is there a cast attached? Okay, so maybe there's a really good director and a good script. We have the relationships to put the cast on. And based on that cast, I know what the value of it is. Then I can back in the financing. It's all reverse engineering it. But yeah, so now we look for only, we probably get 20 what we call packages a week with cast, directors, some level of a budget, if it makes sense or not, and someone's passion behind it.
Justin.
It sounds like you guys, when I think of film, usually think about someone throws in money and it's low odds of success, and then once in a while you get a home run. But it sounds like you guys have a formula and you really think of the downside. But as an investor, if I'm investing in your fund, what type of returns are you guys?
Yeah, so for us, like I said, we've been the borrower for so long, borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars and paying 20% plus fees and setup fees and legal fees and finance fees and all of this nonsense on a very collateralized, safe investment. When I say safe, because we know it's safe, the bank knows it's safe, because the films that we're doing, we could go to Bank of America and borrow from, and that they're conservative, or Bank of California. It's just that they move slower, so we're going to lose the opportunity if we wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks to borrow from Bank of America at a lower rate. These are all very bankable. So we get in on the debt side. People put in, equity, and it's unfortunate a lot of times. But the returns for us, like I said, it's singles and doubles. So we're talking to investors. We're going to guarantee 12.5% annually. We're going to charge as a company 20 on average, and then we're going to split. We're going to give the investors a third of the profits, which the difference between the 12.5 that they're putting in and the 20, they're going to get a third of that on top of their 12.5. And then we're going to take back end points. So if there is anything that has some level of success that pays out profits, they'll get a third of that too. So, but at 12.5%, just kind of as a flat annual, we think is good and fair, and I can usually turn that money 1.5 times a year. So it's a blend of different loans, bridge, gap, so we do a bridge loan at 90 days and we're making 20% on our money. We do 3 or 4 of those a year for a couple million. Then we do a gap, a couple gap loans. We take territories as collateral, depending where the film is. If it's in the middle of filming and it wraps in 90 days and it's going to be sold in another 90 days, we're out in 6 months. Those are the deals I like. I don't want to wait around 18 months, 24 months, which we never would. But yeah, so we can turn the money 1.5 times. So there'll be some decent profits. It shouldn't be home run money, but it's 12.5% plus something,
All right, maybe 1 or 2 more, and then we'll go for it.
I have a related question to Rod's over here. And for context, I'm a private equity investor, Quan Cha. So clearly, my question is about valuation. And clearly, you utilize your institutional knowledge is basically precedent transaction.
Correct.
So, but you look at the cast, and this one is a box office draw, this one's a has-been, this is an up-and-comer, and there's obviously a lot of subjectivity, and then who's the director, what is the script, what's the genre? Can you describe kind of, and I know it's very subjective, but what do you do? How do you mix that together?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Your valuation is 10, 20, 30% too high.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
There's, that's why you really want to work with bankable, bonded sales companies. When I say a sales company, this is all they do. They have a sales team that does global analysis 24/7 on every movie that's coming and going in every country and domestic. And, the market doesn't change. So when I say, I've made Nick Cage movies, Bruce Willis movies, that was in, where a lot of people were doing them. You hire Nick Cage for a week and it gives you a valuation of roughly 10 million gross sales worldwide. 1 million from the UK, 750 from Germany, and we have a price sheet. And this is based on all of the comps, the historicals of him with that level director in that genre. And it's not like it changes 50% overnight or 20% overnight. These comps stay, they can change over a year, 18 months, a couple of years, the value goes up, value goes down. Nick Cage's value now is up. It was down for the last 5 years. I made a movie with him 7 years ago when it was up. But yeah, so every package, it's not really about, it is about the combo, right? If you have a new young director, but you've got, Robert Pattinson from Twilight starring in it, and it's offbeat, quirky film, and it's a $10 million budget, I'd probably pass. If it's a romantic comedy with him and, Kaylee Cuoco, and it's a decent director, or, a decent director and the budget's 10, I think that's a home run.
Yeah, genre really does matter as well in it. So it's like, yeah, if you have Robert Pattinson and it's, it's a straight up drama. On the international side, it's just difficult. It's worth a lot less. If it's him and it's a cool thriller, you're talking a lot more.
Yeah, and different genres sell better than others.
And as you said, and sort of every actor, if you look at them, it's kind of crazy, but it's as a commodity, they all have their value. And so people wonder, why do actors get paid so much? And why now? It's because some actors really, they know their value and how much they mean for getting your film made. And so even on the independent side, studios know, but studios are thinking, okay, what puts people in theaters or pushes the streamer? We look at who's sort of, who's value, not only, international and domestic, but more on the independent side. And everyone has their value. And a lot of times, like the newcomers, so the cast of Stranger Things, or some of these big hit shows, Outer Banks, someone will come to me and say, okay, I've got this $5 million film starring the lead of, not Millie Bobby Brown, but someone else in Stranger Things, because she has a ton of value for a young woman right now. And they're like, it's a $5 or $6 million film, but Stranger Things is the #1 TV show in the world. I'm like, they haven't opened up movies in Germany, this cast. They haven't opened up movies in Spain. Yes, it's a big show, and sure, could you take a risk and go make it for $5 million and it's a monster hit? Absolutely. That's not our business. I don't want to take that risk. We use proven commodities. It's usually the older actors. They're proven. You can't make investments being emotional either.
Precedent data.
You have to. It's all about the numbers. And at the end of the day, we have our sales sheet. I look at the bottom line. There's 2 columns. The minimum that I need to sell these license fees for in every country, and what I want to sell them for. And if I can't make the film for at least 20% less than the worst case number, we're not interested.
All right, last question, and then Shiraga come up and close us out. Last question. Going. Oh.
With the industry changing so much, what are the biggest opportunities for independent producers, and what are the things that the juice is no longer worth the squeeze?
What was the last part?
What are the strategies that are no longer worth the squeeze, that just are not going to give the producers the big bang for their buck?
Yeah, going back to, I think there's a big opportunity for independent producers to align themselves with the major studios for distribution, because we're seeing it on a daily basis on our Platinum Dune stuff. There's so much opportunity, because a lot of the independent producers, unfortunately, are going to fall by the wayside if they can't adapt, or if they don't have those relationships with the distributors. I mean, even like the Lionsgates and the Verticals, nobody's buying anything right now, and that used to be our bread and butter. So you have to pivot, you have to know where to go, or you have to have the right level of product that cuts through all the noise. But aligning yourself with a film fund, a debt fund like ours, and then having the studio relationships for distribution is really key. And I think there's going to be massive opportunity for the indies. Like, we've done a handful of studio films ourselves where we just produced it and the studios financed and put them out. But there's going to be now the opportunity for people like us and the other independents to come in and say, look, we'll bring some co-financing. We want to own a piece. We want to build our own little library, and we want to do 3 of these a year, and you set up an output deal for yourselves, and your independent company now becomes almost like an independent studio with a distribution deal with XYZ. I think that's going to be a massive opportunity over the next 5 years. Yeah.
All right, well, let's give it up for the panel.